We will talk to Kerry Carpenter. He's one of our favorites. And Nate, I know that you really enjoyed him. He was easy to root for and easier to enjoy, even just listening to him last year.
And even easier to interview. I mean, he's well-spoken. Obviously just a really humble person. And I think it's just easier to gravitate towards people like that. When you carry yourself the way that Kerry carries himself, I think it makes it easier to root for that particular player. And obviously he came into his own. I mean, he owned his moment. And so I think that was my favorite part about, cheering him on and seeing his successes. Obviously the humility, but he's blossomed into something special.
We didn't get a chance to get too close of a look at Kerry Carpenter. However, we did get the chance to see the real breakout of Wilmer Flores. Granted, it was only over a handful of innings during the early parts of 2022, but it came to a point where I remember you and I just looking at each other in the booth and just saying, whoa.
Yeah, and it just seemed so natural. Everything about his approach, his movement, to his attitude, he just kind of free and easy, never really seemed tense. But, I know that the Tigers have always loved drafting physically big baseball players, whether that's pitchers, whether that's hitters. They love the projectability of big ball players. Wilmer Flores fit that, but then he also brought the fastball. He also brought the breaking ball along with it.
Wilmer Flores is built like a horse.
He's massive. So he had both to go with that, and obviously the positive, feel-good, go-lucky attitude that he always had. I felt like Wilmer just did everything the right way.
It's funny. You think about his, quote, big brother, and his big brother, I think, is about 4 inches smaller and about 50 pounds lighter.
At least.
Also a Wilmer Flores, by the way, in case you have forgotten that. So we will talk to Wilmer pulling a win at the MLB draft lottery. The Tigers, who were supposed to pick number 6 overall, snuck their way into the top 3. Go figure. The Detroit sports scene has seen some bad lotteries.
Yeah.
Some bad lotteries.
Yep.
But of course, then the second they make one for baseball, the Tigers just get turned into Mario hitting a mushroom. Bloop, bloop, bloop. And they got bigger. And next thing you know, the pick goes up from 6 to 3. So the Tigers end up getting the 3rd overall pick in the draft. And it's not just the fact that they got the 3rd pick, Nate. It's the fact that they got the extra bonus pool money. And now they can really have some fun and really do what they want come draft day.
And we were talking about Rob Metzler. We've mentioned this before. A lot of draft classes, similar rounds, players talent-wise, right around the same. A lot of draft classes, there isn't necessarily a steep drop-off in talent between any particular team, but it takes two things, and I think Rob Metzler has them: spotting good talent and developing good talent. And if, one of the common themes of this podcast so far has been, how can the Tigers be unique? How can they be different? Well, if you want to be unique and different and find almost a back door or maybe the diamond in the rough, who do you go to? You go to one of the organizations that's been unique and different over the last 15 years and has made that kind of their hallmark, their calling card. They do things differently in Tampa, and for some reason, they've found the key to getting the most out of players that aren't expected to have success, but continue to succeed above maybe what the expectations were. So they're taking steps in that direction. So I love that hire, and I'm excited to see what he can do at number 3.
There's some really interesting, but it's clear to see the reasons why the Tigers felt that Scott Harris was the right person to take them through this process. I liked what I heard. I thought it was a fresh face, and I thought it was an enjoyable take. Nate, what were your thoughts?
I like what you said at the very end there about how it's kind of two-parted. You have to have a base. You have to be able to develop your talent and have that core of players, that young core of players that can carry you. But when he talks about calculated risks, Scott Harris, that is, on the other end of that, you have to have a willingness to spend money where it's right to spend money, to surround that base by veteran MLB talent and have the two sides of the equation. I think what's most exciting to me about Scott Harris is the fact that he is only 37. And oftentimes the past is the best indicator of the future. He started working in the front office with the Chicago Cubs in 2012 through 2017, working in a position as the director of baseball, helping construct that 2016 team. And the only reason why they win that World Series is because of the calculated risks they were willing to take. But it only started with the teardown in 2012, in 2013, when the Cubs were winning 50 some odd games. That's the only reason why they were able to get to that end goal, because of calculated risks and working under someone legendary like Theo Epstein, who's done it in a couple of different places. So I like new, I love innovative, but I like the combination of having that base of major league talent, but also being willing to put the money where you need to get that end result.
Theo Epstein, Farhan Zaidi, I mean, these are some of the preeminent people in baseball leadership in the Dominican Republic. Meanwhile, the trades we were talking about, and these are the ones that, Nate, we were talking about a little bit as well. Let's start with the first one that happened. It was Joe Jimenez, who was traded from Detroit to the Atlanta Braves. And in return, the Tigers get a bat, and one that kind of fits the profile that I think Scott Harris had been looking for from the very beginning in Justin Henry Malloy.
Yeah, and it kind of fits the profile that a lot of the fans and supporters are looking for. Number one, he can play multiple different positions. He's an outfielder. He can play a little bit of third base, so he can do both of that for you. But it's really the bat that strikes you as most impressive. He played at 3 different levels, all 3 levels, high A, double A, triple A, batted .289 and .862 on base, plus slugging percentage last year in the Braves minor league system. He also had 17 home runs, 81 RBIs, 97 walks in 133 games. So the offensive numbers are there, and again, he can do a little bit of everything. So when people talk about, well, we need bats, we need an infusion of offense, I think he's the first real big step for this Scott Harris committee in moving in that direction.
97 walks, be still my beating heart. Yeah. Jay Hen. Of course, the Detroit Tigers announced that they are bringing in the center field fence. They're bringing it in 10 feet. Apparently, it was 422 feet and not 420 feet like it said on that big green wall, but they're moving it in. Essentially, they're wiping out the warning track, right? So they're bringing it in a little bit, and in that way, we're not going to see 419-foot flyouts to center field, and that makes me happy.
We're not going to see any more of those metrics where this would be a home run in 29 major league stadiums, but not this one. And I'm happy we won't get to see that metric. At least it'll still be very much a pitcher's park. But yeah, just in a way that makes me happy as a Tigers fan.
I think a lot of people I couldn't do this without our producer, Nate Wangler, who is almost as important as Carhart in this situation. Nate, you've been on the ones and twos since the very first show that we've done. I couldn't imagine anybody else being on it. I've always appreciated everything you've done for this show, on this show, and with this show. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done.
And I appreciate you for bringing me along. I appreciate, the Tigers for trusting me in this position. And, the reason why I love sports so much, it has to do with my teams and everything like that. But it's really the fascination with the individual players involved with those teams. That's why I am so enamored by sports in general. And really, it was their stories through this podcast and our ability to go behind the scenes and individually meet these players and understand them on a deeper level. Whether it's Riley Green fighting alligators in his nightmares, Jackson Joe blocking his keys in Michael Fulmer's house and having to crawl through the window, Kerry Carpenter working at Dick's Sporting Goods during the coronavirus, whatever it is, their stories not only made our lives easier in what we did as play-by-play broadcasters and being able to provide context to a game that maybe didn't otherwise have it to people that were watching, but it also helped us understand them on a deeper level, and it made the job just that much more fulfilling. Was it tough doing it on our only day off? Yeah. Did I resent that it was on our only day off some weeks? Absolutely.
I get it.
But I feel like it gave us a better look at these guys on an individual level, and it's so much easier to support them when you're not just looking at W's and L's and batting average and walks and strikeouts and so on and so forth. It provided that extra level. So thank you to all the players who had the willingness to get comfortable and share those stories, because I know they've been in front of microphones and cameras before, but it's tough to get to that level. But it's funny because a podcast provides you the opportunity to get to that level, unlike a lot of other mediums. So I thought that was really special. So thank you to all the players, too. You guys really made the show what it is.
Watching the stories unfold. I mean, that's what makes it fun. That's why we're here. Plus, I almost forgot about Riley Green, Crocodile Hunter. So I'm glad you brought that up. Look, doing a podcast